This is a case of a 65-year-old male who was referred to me for dissatisfaction due to dysphotopsia related to a multifocal IOL. This patient's initial surgery had been 2 years prior, and although he'd had a good refractive outcome, he was very bothered by nighttime glare and halo. Fortunately, he had never had a YAG capsulotomy and therefore was a good candidate for an IOL exchange. Once the anterior chamber is filled with viscoelastic, a Malyugin ring is placed to improve visibility and particularly to enhance the view of the haptics. In these IOLs that have been in place for longer periods of time, it is the area around the haptic that usually presents the most problem. After obtaining subcapsular access using a bevel down 25 gauge needle and cohesive viscoelastic, the easiest way to approach these is to first viscodissect the haptics, followed by the optic edges, and finally viscodissecting posteriorly to the optic. Viscodissection went smoothly for the majority of the IOL, despite the lens being in place for quite some time. There appeared to be minimal fibrosis with one small area at the base of the temporal haptic. It quickly became obvious that the temporal haptic was secured in place by a fibrotic band. These focal areas of fibrosis are quite common around the haptics and represent the most challenging aspect of removing IOLs that have been in place for long periods of time. They are best approached with slow, gentle, methodical viscodissection using the minimal amount of mechanical dissection necessary. Once the adhesion is freed, the exchange proceeded as any other with prolapse of the IOL into the anterior chamber. Once in the anterior chamber, dispersive viscoelastic is used to maintain space between the endothelium and the IOL. The new monofocal IOL is injected into the capsular bag and positioned in my preferred horizontal orientation. With the posterior capsule now protected by the new IOL, the multifocal IOL is disassembled in the anterior chamber. In this case, I'm using MST microforceps and IOL scissors and a 2.4mm incision. Once the old IOL is out of the eye, I remove the Malyugin ring and then the viscoelastic with a combination of irrigation aspiration and cannula irrigation. Finally, intracameral cefuroxime is injected, completing the case. I hope you find this video useful and thank you for watching.